It's time for Reason.
If you're going to run as a Republican, then you need to uphold Republican values. Less government, limited taxes, less regulation, understanding the duties of the government. These are things that are the platform of the Republican Party. They've been the platform of the Republican Party for a really long time, and now Republican legislators need to uphold that, respect it, and fight for it, rather than saying they will when they run for office and then turning around and doing something different.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's right. Can you believe it? It is a Monday, kicking off a brand new week, getting you excited for a whole nother day after the holiday week last week. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation. Here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on TV, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today on a Monday. Yeah, that's right. We're getting you set up, getting you set for not only for today, but for the entire week, setting the tone, getting you pumped up. That's the way we like to roll today on a Monday morning. Let's get it going.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here.
That's what we love. Welcome in 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, we'd love to hear from you today. We got a lot to get to. And I don't think we even have a guest today. I think it's just open lines to you and I chitting the chat and making it happen, as we try to do every single. Welcome back if you've been able to take off all last week, whether it was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and take off the entire weekend, whatever you ended up doing. Welcome back in, and let's get you started off. I know it's really hard after a holiday as you're trying to, get back into the groove of things and go back to work, and I got to wake up early again, and I get it. It's really tough. And now the whole being excited about a holiday thing's kind of over, and we got a ways to wait until the next one. So we're really excited, and let's get you excited for today as well. 316-721-8255. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well. You can like it, share it, leave a comment, say good morning. We'd love to hear from you. Call me a jerk. I don't really care one way or another, but let's get her rolling today. There was a lot that happened over the weekend. As you know, today, President Donald Trump is making his official pick when it comes to the Supreme Court justice. We'll talk about that individual tomorrow after that official announcement has been made, and we'll talk about the goods, the bads, the uglies, what may happen, what potentially could happen. I'm still kind of shocked, sort of shocked when it comes to wanting to pick a Supreme Court justice before the election, when this could really be a rally cry for Republicans to show up to the voting booth in November. Democrats are using this as the rally cry for them to show up. The big quote-unquote blue wave is supposed to be happening. We should all be really, really scared, by the way. Yeah. Should be really terrified of the fact that the blue wave is going to be sweeping through the nation, and that we're going to be having Democrats across the board changing things and nominating Supreme Court justices and stopping Donald Trump and wanting to impeach Donald Trump and all the other shenanigans that go along with that. It's not going to happen, but, it's really cute for them thinking about that. So we'll talk about that race coming up a little bit. Also, the Supreme Court nominee. Also, I don't know if you're aware or not, but the protest has officially ended in Wichita when it comes to the immigration issue and the separating the children from the families and the the abolish ICE movement and all these other things that they were trying to be very productive on. We have some audio from the rally that happened on Friday, the demand that they made. It was one demand, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Get your thoughts on it. Also, we are moving forward still with our pro-immigration, pro-ICE, pro-law enforcement rally, because I think it is really important, and I got a little bit more information. We'll have a lot more clear message on that today, which means stay tuned on social media and on the show tomorrow morning, and we'll definitely have something, hopefully, knock on wood, locked in with what's going to happen. I'm looking at this weekend of us doing, even with their protests being done, that's okay. That's honestly okay, because it doesn't matter what they're doing. We didn't want to acknowledge what they were doing anyways. This is our own separate deal. This is our own separate movement. This is our own separate rally, and it's going to be a positive, reinforced, happy-go-lucky rally where we unite, we rally together, and we show that we are as one within our community. that we support ICE, that we support law enforcement, that we support the rule of law, and that's what this rally is going to be about. So regardless of whether they're protesting or not, does not matter. I half expect them to show up and counter-protest us, which is okay, but we are going to do a rally. We're going to make this happen, and we'll have more information on that by today. It was really hard to get a hold of people last week when they were out for the holidays, so we'll have more information on that later on today and tomorrow, so stay tuned in for that one. So we got a lot to get to. Also, we saw the story. I don't know if you're aware or not, but the budget year for the state of Kansas ends in the end of June, which means July, not only do we get to see the unemployment rate or the tax receipt revenue that came in for the month of June, but we also get to see the wrap up for the entire 2017 budget year. And we saw those numbers. The media is really giddy about it. The progressives are really giddy about it. And does it really mean anything? We'll have to comment on that one a little bit later, too. Plus, the record, I don't know if you're aware or not, but CNSnews.com record 155 million jobs employed in June, which is the 155 million, 10th record that Trump has broken since he's been in office. That one is response to the June numbers that came out. Unemployment going down, 155 and a half. I mean, technically it's 155, 576,000. So 155 and a half million individuals working, record number for the economy in the recent years, and especially for President Donald Trump, which means we're on the right track, but yet nobody still is going to give him credit for that. And what else do you expect? 316-721-8255. So as you can see, a lot of things happening, and we'll have some fun digressing and discussing about all of these things this morning. Until then, let's go to the phones, get your thoughts on all. By the way, I have to say, yesterday I was out and about, and I was working outside. I don't know if you could see, I got a little sun. It was really nice, but I got to utilize and work with my brand new gas can and gas spout, and I did not spill any bit of gasoline when I was mowing, when I was working with the weed eater. I was working on the outside projects. I did not spill a lick of gas. Now, that would not have happened if I did not have that awesome old school traditional non-government regulated gas spout. And I just got to say, I finally got to use it for a couple of times this weekend, and it worked phenomenally. Now, the first time I got to use it, I got really excited and ended up spilling it all over the place because, well, I just got really happy about using it and got excited. Now that the excitement has worn off, I got to use it realistically, and I did not spill any bit of gas. I just thought I'd throw that out there. I know as a lot of people mow their lawn, working on the trimmings, working on the garden, working on their things outside. I just thought I'd throw that out there, that the old school traditional non-government regulated gas spout worked way better than the new age government regulated gas spout that's supposed to prevent environmental disasters and gas spilling all over the place, and it's supposed to, pretty much not let anything get out of the can, which would be the whole point of having the can, to be able to dump it into other things. But thank you, government. Your program has not worked, and we went back to the old school traditional way that did work, and it worked out beautifully. So thank you very much for that, and I thought I'd let you know about that update on the home front like that. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones this morning. What do you say? Line number one. Good morning. What's your name?
Eddie.
Hey, good morning, Eddie. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm just fine.
Hey, very good.
Fine. That homeless camp's gone from Central and Woodlawn. It was gone early Saturday morning. Anyway.
Yes. It actually, what was really ironic about it was that they made their demand, quote unquote demand, on Friday with their rally. They actually marched over to the immigration center where they were protesting in the first place. They held their rally. We had some elected officials show up, which I'll play some of the audio in a little bit. But what was really funny was usually when you make a demand, you continue your shenanigans or protests or whatever you're doing until your demands are met. That's the whole point of making a demand. They made their demand at 2 o'clock on Friday, and by 4 o'clock, we saw the official announcement on social media that they were taking a break from their protest because their demand has been released. They made a good impact. They let their demands be known, and don't make us come back sort of thing, but we're going to take a break because it was a really hot week, and we're really tired, and we don't want to do this anymore. And a storm's coming, by the way, as well, and we don't want to be stuck out in the middle of that. So I just kind of chuckled to myself because after they made their demand, usually you continue on with your shenanigans until the demand is met. The demand, as far as I'm aware of, has not been made yet, or has not been met yet. But an hour after their demand was made, then they ended up breaking up and saying, yeah, okay, we're tired, we're done.
Yes. Say, I don't want to be off topic, but something really important announcement was made last week, and Jim Skelton, the former 5th District County Commissioner, he's going to run against our old pal Jim Howe.
Yes.
And that's going to be very interesting because I know this. Well, I don't know him, but I've seen him enough time on TV. This Jim Skelton, he's a very interesting person. He's not the calm, cool, polite individual like Jim Howe is. He's although he's a very good person, very nice person, he's kind of an aggressive old boy.
He is. You're right. I did see that press release. He announced, actually, I got the email as of yesterday with the official announcement saying that he received enough signatures as an independent candidate to be getting on the ballot for District Number 5 for the county commission. So that will be a competition going on that'll be very fun to watch when it comes to the election for District Number 5 of Sedgwick County Commission.
And I do know that on situations like this that you're neutral, and it's going to be very interesting to have this man come on because he's a very interesting individual.
Sure.
And he doesn't. He's the kind of guy that doesn't back down, and he says what he wants to say. And if another county commissioner is out of line, he'll just say it.
Sure. Well, here's the thing. I am neutral during the primary race because, I mean, as a conservative, as a Republican, I want Republicans to be in office, so I don't necessarily get too involved in the primary election cycles, but come the general election, I predominantly 90% of the time support Republicans over Democrats or independents.
The way I see it, I do know that he's running as an independent. The way I see it, and it's just me, that I think he attracts more of the, I will call the working class people. And in my opinion, I think Jim Howe, the more the working class people that have kind of a better job to the business class people. That's the way I see it, and I'm just an old man. But it's going to be it's just going to be very interesting. And
it is. That's going to be a fun race to watch. And as you mentioned, I don't know much about Jim Skelton. I have not met him yet. We will invite him onto the show come the general election cycle after the primaries and get him on to talk a little bit. But you're right. That did come in as Saturday was when I got that press release that he had received officially the 2,200 petition signatures in order to qualify for the general election ballot as an independent for that race. So another fun race that we get to look forward to come the general election, because I tell you what, this election season, even though we're still kind of coming down from the 2016 presidential race, these midterms are going to be really fun to watch. I think we're going to have some fun elections coming up.
Yes, and my county commissioner, old Michael O'Donnell, he still has to go through his 12th felony count federal trial. We just might happen to have 2 elections.
You may have another race on that on your hands for that district. You never know.
But as far as Jim Howe goes, I really, really like the guy. I have deep respect for him. The only fault I see in him, and it's really not a fault, I think he's a little bit too loyal to some people. I think he needs to kind of open up his eyes sometime and say, do I really want to be really, really loyal to this person? But he's just a beautiful person. I love old Jim Howe. He's a good old boy.
Sure.
So am I for Jim Howe? Oh, hell yes. But he's not mine, my man. But Jim Skelton, he's a good old boy too, but it's just going to be very, very interesting. We're going to have a beautiful fall. You know that?
Hey, you know what? It's going to be a great time for America. We love it, and we appreciate it very much. Eddie, I love it. Have a great Monday, my friend. Good to talk to you. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. 316-721-8255. You're right. I mean, this election time is going to be one for the books. It really is. We thought 2016 was going to be an exciting race. Wait till you see this one. As the blue wave's trying to come back, this is going to be the telltale sign of whether President Trump's doing a good job on the federal level. Many of the national seats, Congressman Ron Estes and Kevin Yoder, and the Republicans, it's going to be we're trying to replace Lynn Jenkins, or the Democrats trying to replace Lynn Jenkins. It's going to be a really interesting election for those. Then we see some of the state legislators, which we're going to get to in a second, where are we going to stand up to the Supreme Court? What's going to be the response of the Supreme Court and the legislature to the Supreme Court? What are we going to do with many of our taxes or spending issues in Topeka? This is going to be the telltale sign right here in this election. It's time for us to get excited, get pumped up, and be aware of what's going to be coming up in the next few months. 316-721-8255. 21 minutes past the hour. We'll take a break here. Your thoughts and calls. We got a lot to get to. It's going to be a lot of fun today on a Monday morning. Stay right here for the Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
7 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, kicking off your Monday morning the best way we know how to do so, which is get you all fired up about politics. That's really the best way that I know how to get pumped up in the morning, trying to get started, trying to get woken up. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. By the way, the rally that we're looking at, that I'm looking at trying to put on, I've been in touch with ICE, the media relations department, and we'll be talking sometime today. My hope and my goal is to be able to do this right on the grounds, right by the ICE location. I mean, why not? If we're going to support ICE, if we're going to support law enforcement, we might as well do it in a place where, they actually go about their business on a Saturday. So more information to come on that one, and I'll let you know as soon as I find out something, and we'll make it happen. 316-721-8255, record number, baby. 155,576,000 employed in June, the 10th record for Trump. Our economic policy, according to CNS News, our economic policy can be summed up in three very simple but very beautiful words: jobs, jobs, and jobs. On Friday, the Labor Department's Bureau of Labor Statistics said the economy added 213,000 jobs in June. Again, a strong number. The number of employed Americans, 155.5 million, set the 10th record of the Trump presidency. But the number of unemployed Americans increased by almost 500,000 as well. The unemployment rate increased 0.2 of a point to 4% as of right now. Do we have some work to do? Absolutely. Do we have an opportunity for this? Absolutely. Look, the federal government can only do so much by creating jobs on their own. What's the best way that the federal government can actually decrease unemployment, can actually increase jobs? That would be to get out of the way. That would be to get out of the private sector. That would be allowing the states to make decisions. That would be allowing the businesses and corporations to make decisions. That would be the small businesses having the ability to make their own decisions. The state of Kansas is still struggling. We're probably not helping those numbers much. I mean, we've been able to streamline a little bit and squeeze our unemployment rate to a nice low, an 18-year record number, a record low. However, we have not gained any jobs, really. We haven't really gained in that sense. So are we really helping those numbers? No. So when we talk about the difference between the state and the federal government, how many of us should start looking at not only the federal government, but the responsibility of the state by increasing just as many jobs? I think we have a bit of a duty there as well. We'll talk about that when we come back. Plus, some of the legislators that we have some work to do that I think that we need to focus on a little bit when it comes to their platforms going into the midterm election and who's going to go back into Topeka again. Lots more coming up today. It's a Monday morning right here on the Voice of Reason. Good Monday to you. Let's wake you up the right way. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
One dose of sanity at a time.
I'm not being aggressive, I'm being dominant.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into it. Great to have you along today. It is a Monday morning starting off a post-holiday week. I know it's really tough. I know it's really difficult. Hang tight. We'll get you there. We'll do our best, what we can, waking you up the right way. Interpret that one the way that you see fit. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. It is open lines to you today on a Monday, getting back into the groove the way that we like to do. 155.5 million jobs in the nation. Just think about that, too. By the way, that's really only about half the population. We have a ways to go That's really only about half the. I know they say that the unemployment rate's only 4%, and that's only the people within the working age limit between the age of 18 and 65, and that's healthy, that's able-bodied, that's ready to go. I mean, that really only counts those individuals. And that's kind of a scary thought because we have just over 330 plus million individuals in the country. 155 are actually working. That means that we literally only have half the population that is working. Now, obviously, some are younger than 18 and they technically can't work, or they're not working full time, or they're maybe working under the table sort of thing, or they're older and they're retired and they're not working. So I'm not counting those, but just think about that for a second, which is why social programs are so strained. We have WIC that takes care of the younger kids for many individuals and many families and households. We have Medicare and Medicaid that takes care of elderly and disabled individuals that are retired or may not be able to work to some degree, that are paid for by the taxpayer. And with 330 plus million individuals in the country, only 155 are actually working. That's kind of a scary thought. And we wonder why our social programs continue to increase in spending every single year. We wonder why the federal budget continues to be on autopilot for 60% plus of the federal budget, to where you don't even touch it. You don't even look at it. You just put it on autopilot, you set it, and you just let it ride, baby. And it grows by exponentially every single year based on inflation and percentage-wise. And you look at 3, 4, 5% growth every year. And then we look at touching it, and then they panic and they freak out, man. Oh, you can't be doing something like that. How dare you? As they talk about trying to not only cut the social program, but just slow the growth of. And apparently to them, that's a very terrible thing. You can't be doing something like that. Can't be doing that. 155.5 million workers in the country, 330 million in the population. Just under half of the population actually works. Now, for the state of Kansas, as we mentioned in the last segment, there is the big difference between what the federal government can do. I mean, you can create federal jobs to some degree. Hopefully, the jobs we're creating are not an expansion of the bureaucratic state and the federal government in the public sector, because we want to keep the public sector as small, as limited, as isolated as we possibly can. I know it's a very difficult task, but that's our goal. Some may disagree. No, we should have everybody in the public sector. Everybody can get the universal government health care. Everybody can get the nice little set income from the government. Everybody can be taken care of. And that's the happy little socialist utopia that you live in. Guess what? It's unrealistic and it doesn't work in any way, shape, or form. It's actually a really dumb idea. But, you got your right to believe it if you want to, I guess. If you really want to. But we need to grow the private sector. We need to grow the private institutions, the small business, the corporations. We need to be able to grow them. We talked about it, last week with one of our guests that we had on, talking about 99% of all business in the country is small business, mom and pop, privately owned small business. And they're the ones that have to grow. When you're looking at starting, whether it's a taco truck on the side of the street, whether it is a retail store, whether it is a manufacturing company, whether it's a transportation and a semi-truck driving company, no matter what you're starting, small business is what drives this nation. And the question is, let's take that away from the federal government, because they can only do so much, and really the only thing they can do or should be doing is saying, we're going to get the red tape and the regulation and the restrictions out of your way so you have that opportunity. Now it's up to you, states. Now it's up to you, companies and private sector and corporations and whoever you may be. Now it's up to you to make those proper business decisions, and you can either fail or you can succeed. That's the beauty of the capitalist system. And if you fail, then you get yourself back up and you try again, because that's what you do in a capitalist system. This is not a caste system. This is not a socialist utopia to where you're just stuck and you're just the working class and you look up to the elites and so you say, thank you, elites, for the groveling, and please give me some more of the crumbs from your table. We don't live in a system like that. If you want a system like that, go believe in something like Bernie Sanders believes in, to where he wants to cap your profits, to where he wants to tell you that you can only make so much money, to tell you that when you do make the money, you should be taxed at a really high rate to pay for somebody else's goods for it. But by the way, Bernie Sanders is entitled to having 3 different vacation homes. But you don't have that right, because when you make more money, then you need to be taxed on it, right? Tell me again how socialism works. Tell me again how democratic socialism works. Tell me again how that is a brilliant idea in some way, shape, or form to where you are openly and willing, wanting to become that peasant, groveling from the elite at the top. Tell me how that's a good idea. Whereas in a capitalist system, you can start a business, a small one. Hey, kids, it's summertime. Maybe you're hopefully waking up at this time. If not, then I don't know how many of you actually listened to the show when I did the noon show on KQAM from noon to 2, and I did the middays. And we would have fun every day right at the top of the hour when we started the show at like 10 minutes after. We get everything going, and I would play an air horn, and I would sound off the air horn, and I said that it was time for all the millennials and everybody on the social programs. It's time to get up. It's time to get up. It's like 12. It's like quarter after 12, and we would play that air horn. Time to get up as we try and get everybody woken up and everybody on the social programs trying to get them up and moving. And we would have some fun with that. Young kids, hopefully, I know it's the summertime. I know you're partying hard at nighttime and sleeping in during the morning, but now is the time. You can go and you can start a lawn mowing service for individuals, and you could make some really good money. You could make some really good money as a child, as a young adult, as a young individual looking to be able to save up some money for college, looking to save up some money for a vehicle, looking to save up for whatever you're saving up for, or just to stash it away because you don't want to spend it. This is your opportunity to do. I tell you what, in a socialist nation, you would not be allowed to do that. Hey, really young kids, you can start a lemonade stand, usually, if you don't get shut down by the government, sometimes. You have these opportunities. Name another system that allows you to have those opportunities. Now, what we have to look at again, let's go back to the state. I know we're looking and we're trying to find ways for business initiatives to be able to grow. I tell you could start all the business initiatives that you want to. The number one factor that is going to deter individuals from starting small business, from growing small business, from hiring within their small business or large business is going to be tax rates. And you cannot have it both ways. You are not able to have it both ways by saying, we're going to raise your taxes, retroactively, mind you. Remember last year, retroactive. I know many people have short memory spans. We're going to continuously remind you, 2017, July 1 was when that retroactive tax increase took place. When you filed your taxes in April of 2018, just a few months ago, you had to pay taxes because you had that retroactive tax increase. You were responsible for that difference in taxes from January to July of last year that no one told you about until after it took place. The tax increases went up. Sales tax is the 8th highest in the entire nation in the state of Kansas. Business taxes are ridiculously high, and they're continuously going up. Then you're seeing energy and utility rates going up for not only residential, but also for commercial. And also for individuals wanting to go off the grid and trying to get solar panels or windmills or whatever you end up wanting to do. These things all across the board are going to harm growth in the state. That's just a matter of fact. You can try and argue it. You can try and deny it. You can be you know what? They always claim that we're the environmental deniers because we don't believe in man-made climate change actually happening, to where we know it's not because we're actually we're not scientists, but we actually read the science. And we actually, look outside and see the commonsensical thing. It's hot outside. Is that because of global warming or it's because it's summertime? I don't know. Let's go to the scientists and find out. They always say that we're deniers. They are economic deniers. They are economic illiterates to some degree. Some of them are on the progressive side of the aisle. Again, not parties, because there are some that are unfortunately on the Republican side of the aisle believing that as well. But there are economic deniers who deny, and I think that should be the new term that we coin on this show. They are the economic deniers, to where they're trying to create business initiatives, they're trying to grow business, or trying to do what they can to incentivize in that sense, but at the same time, we continuously raise taxes. We have income tax rate that needs to go down. We were on the path to zero, now it's going back up. We have property taxes that we're trying to fight to keep low, but that may be going up. We have the 8th highest sales tax in the entire nation, and that cannot go down. We've tried numerous different times in the last legislative session to lower your sales tax, just on food, and it didn't work. It didn't work. They're economic deniers, because what business in their right mind would come to Kansas, would expand their business, would hire more individuals in an economy like that when you're uncertain of what your tax rate may actually be? when you're uncertain of how great things are going to be here, when we have oil and natural gas that are struggling because of commodity prices, when you have agriculture that's struggling because of commodity prices, tell me how these are supposed to help business feel secure. We're the only state in the Mid-America region that had negative GDP growth in 2016. The only one. Every one of them, anywhere from 1% up to 3%, 4%, whatever. We're the only one that saw a negative. And by the way, only 2 states in the entire nation in 2016 saw negative GDP growth. Kansas was one of them. The other one was on the East Coast. Rhode Island, Connecticut, whatever it was. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Negative 0.1%. Wasn't much, but it was still negative growth. Only 1 of 2 states in the entire nation, and the only one in the Mid-America region. Why? Why? Because we're repealing the tax breaks and the tax initiatives the Republicans did in 2012. That's the only reason. You can create every type of opportunity for businesses in the state, but if you have high tax rates, it's not going to be worth it. We have to look at the one giant elephant in the room, and that is taxes, taxes, and taxes. That's the only thing. You start limiting those taxes, minimizing that, and focus on which way we're going to go. Are we going to have the happy balance between sales and income tax? Are we going to go to a fair tax and go sales tax only and get rid of the income tax, which is what we were on the path to do with the 2012 tax breaks from Governor Brownback? What are we going to do? What direction are we going to go? Because as we continue to raise up the sales tax and then we end up bringing up the income tax again, do you realize how much money is going out that's not even benefiting you? And yet we still want more money, right? The government still asks for more. The education system still wants more. I was driving around, by the way, over the weekend and looking at some of these school districts, looking at the buildings as you drive by them. These are unbelievable Taj Mahals. These are the biggest buildings I have ever seen. Now, granted, I came from a school district in Colorado, as I've mentioned many times before, that was very, very small. I mean, we had 400 students in the entire high school. It was a very small school. I get it. There are many rural communities around here that may be that same size or smaller even. But you drive around some, not going to mention any names right now. You would think this is a college campus. You would think this is a university campus. How massive these buildings are. And they're the ones saying need more money. We need more money. Need more money. Got to get more money. Don't have enough money. We can't properly educate these children with the money that we're getting. It is impossible for us to be able to educate these children with the amount of money that we have right now. We need more money. But by the way, look at how massive this building is. Look at the 2 football fields we have. Look at the 3 baseball fields we have. Look at the different playgrounds we have out here. It is beautiful. It is massive. Need more money. We can't get these kids educated. We just don't have enough money. Give me a break. Are you kidding me? This is the frustration we have. This is what we're fighting every single day. We're not going to grow as a state. We're not going to grow as an economy if we continue to bicker, if we continue to fight about high tax rates, and we continue to want to spend more and more and more money. That's the spending, by the way, at the state level growing faster than the economy in the state of Kansas can actually keep up. That's the problem that we need to address, and we need to address it immediately. 10 minutes to the top of the hour. We'll take a break, wrap up hour number 1. Your thoughts and calls on this and a heck of a lot more coming up. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. By the way, according to the Topeka Capital Journal, all the media, by the way, they're loving this. They're giddy. They're excited because of the fact that they have sticking it to Governor Sam Brownback. They have spited him. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They have shown him what's up. You know what they did? Obviously, we repealed the 2012 tax reform. We raised taxes retroactively last year. And to everybody's shock, to everybody's surprise that when you raise taxes, you get more revenue. Well, you know, The state of Kansas wrapped up the fiscal year by collecting $1.21 billion more in tax revenue than the previous years following the repeal of the controversial tax policy derived from supply-side economic theory and championed by former Governor Sam Brownback. Oh, they are getting... Look at this. The supply-side economic theory. That free market, capitalist, low tax, focus on the private sector, laissez-faire system that Governor Brownback tried to implement, that didn't work. We raised taxes, and then we got more money. And we got $1.21 billion more in tax revenue than the previous year because of those tax increases. What a shocking, wild concept. When you take people's money, then you have more money. Let me tell you something. Let's go back to a basic Common Core math problem, shall we? And you always remember the word problems and the math problems. You'd always get so upset. As a kid, I'd always hate those math problems when it was the paragraph you had to read and try and construct it yourself. You'd always despise those kind of discussions. Let's say little Jimmy has 5 apples. Little Susie has 5 apples as well. The parents, being the government, need those apples because they're really hungry too. They were taking 1 apple from each of them, but now they take 3 apples from each of them. How many more apples did the government have compared to before they were taking the 3 apples at a time? Shocker. Let's answer that question, shall we? Before taking 1 apple from each one of them, they would have 2 apples. Now that they're taking 3 from each of little Johnny and little Susie, they now have 6 apples in total. Shocker. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you're aware of it or if it's a very difficult concept to understand, but now all of a sudden, because you're taking more apples away, guess what? You now have more apples as the parent than when you did before. Oh, man. Oh, gotta love it. We are really smart. That was our educational course of the day. We now have 6 apples instead of 2. We went up by 4 apples. God bless those nice little supply side economic theories before of keeping the parents out and letting your kids be able to maintain the amount of apples they had before so they could actually grow their apple collection and maybe plant the apple tree. But now you have them because you took more of them away. Wow. We're really smart. Man. This is the lunacy we have to deal with the left. It's sad, it's pathetic, it's somewhat comical, but it drives you nuts. Got some calls on the line. Stay here. We'll get to you starting off in hour number 2. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
If you're going to run as a Republican, then you need to uphold Republican values. Less government, limited taxes, less regulation, understanding the duties of the government. These are things that are the platform of the Republican Party. They've been the platform of the Republican Party for a really long time, and now Republican legislators need to uphold that, respect it, and fight for it, rather than saying they will when they run for office and then turning around and doing something different.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation. Here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV, KGP TV, channel 2610. Great to have you along today on a Monday. Let's get you started. Let's get you pumped up. What do you say? Setting the tone for not only for today, but for the entire week after we're coming off of the holiday week. I know it's tough. Let's have a little fun today. What do you say?
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here.
That's what I'm talking about. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you're going to join into the program, we'd love to hear from you today. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling. Facebook.com/1480KQAM. You can like it, share it, leave a comment, ask a question, call me a jerk. I don't really care. We love having you aboard. 316-721-8255. A lot to get to today. We got some calls on the line as well. But first, this happened over the weekend.
Against intolerance, against racial profiling, against bigotry, against separating children from their mothers at night. Those of you that are mothers, how many of you had a little baby that you could just, here, you stay in this room for 5 or 6 days or for 3 months, no problem. We know that taking care of children is our very nature. And so what this administration is doing is unnatural. It's unnatural. It's un-American. It's non-human. It doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, whatever you are. It matters, do you love children?
This is Dennis
I want to
Romero.
thank our elected officials for coming out, and what we're asking is that they are able to go in there like they've done all across the United States, anywhere they have kids, children detained. Our elected officials need to know what that looks like in there. So
There it is. All right. So that was, I believe his name, Dennis Romero. He is one of the speakers that happened at the protest on Friday, the rally, the demands that were made at the press conference, which there was like one media outlet there that tried to cover this, and the Wichita Eagle did report on this as well. But the rally of the protesters from Woodlawn and Central, they ended up disbanding. I had to chuckle. I mean, I have to chuckle just because when you make a demand, usually you continue on with whatever you're doing that's bugging people until the demand is met. That's the point of making a demand instead of a request. They made the demand, and then they took a break from the protesting, which is great because, it's great. Now my, street corner actually looks nice. But they made the demand, and then they kind of dismantled. Now, whether it was because a storm was coming in, whether it was because they were just tired after a week long of protest, I don't know. But the rally happened. Some state legislators showed up. We'll play that audio clip here as well. But the protest, the demand that they made was that we allow some of our elected officials into the vicinity, into the facility, and to be able to look around, to be able to inspect it and make sure that people are being treated humanely, and whether it is a detention center or it is not a detention center. That is the demand they made. Now, my immediate response would be this is a federal building, not a state building, so therefore state legislatures would have very little or no control over that in any way, shape, or form, nor would have the right to inspect a federal building, just like any other federal agency where you have to have some form of clearance. Go into a military base and try and just walk in and say, I wish to inspect this because I'm a state legislator. See how well that works for you. How well that works for you. So it's kind of an unreasonable demand. Just a little bit. Now, if you try and get some federal legislators on to maybe try it, then maybe that's a little bit easier. But again, do they have the proper clearance for something like that? That's the way the government works. For the same ones that are advocating for a socialist mentality with a more centralized government, they're out here protesting government being big and doing its thing. And we got to remember the roles of government as well, where the main focus and the role of what the federal government should be doing is foreign relations, which includes immigration policy. Now, of course, the abolish ICE obviously isn't going to happen. That was just a nice little tag along that went along with the rest of the national protests that are going on right now, trying to abolish ICE. It's not going to happen. Good luck with you trying that. It's really cute to think about, but it's just not going to work. But to try and get state legislators to go in and inspect a federal building on immigration, on whether it's a detention center or not, is a completely unreasonable demand, which is why they probably recognized that it wasn't going to be worth fighting for and sitting on the side of the street corner day after day after day. Those officials that they wanted to include in there was Democratic State Representative Gail Finney, Democratic State Senator Olitha Faust-Godot, Republican State Representative Roger Elliott, City Council Member Brandon Johnson, City Councilman James Clendenin, and Republican U.S. Representative Ron Estes. So they did. I give them credit for wanting to have both sides of the aisle try and do this, but it's unreasonable and it's not going to happen. Good luck with it, but it's not going to happen. So that was the demand. Now think about that demand as we listen to the audio clips. I want to take a phone call first and get your thoughts on this, but I have a lot of audio clips from the rally, from many of the different speakers, and see if it actually coincides with what their demand and what their message has actually been. Because you'll find, shockingly or unshockingly, that there's a bit of hypocrisy and a double-edged sword from what they want and what they've been protesting. A little bit difference in those. We'll talk about that in just a second. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones and get your phone calls. Line number 1, good morning. What's your name?
Hey, this is Gary.
Gary, what's going on, sir?
Well, my comment would be, I believe that the Kansas legislature is both hypocritical and tyrannical. Case in point, they have their own, on the hypocritical side, they have their own casino that they run any way they want to, allow smoking, and yet they won't allow private businesses to run, private owners to run their businesses the way they want to. And I don't care whether it's a private business that deals with public or not the public. And but then the other side is, we're going to tax you retroactively. I mean, for God's sake, that's some kind of backwater government, isn't it? I mean,
everything the government has done, unfortunately. Now, again, there are many individuals in there that are trying to fight for the right thing, but there's not enough of them, which is the problem that we're having. Because you're right, the main focus, the main mentality, the main goal that the state government has had for the last couple of years has been, how can we bring in more revenue for the state, not expanding the GDP, not growing the private sector, not taking care of what needs to be taken care of, but just saying we need more revenue because we have spending habits that we need to take care of, and you better abide by that or else we're going to just raise your taxes. And that's really what their focus has been, is we need to find more revenue for the state. They raise the sales tax, they raise the income tax, they raise the property tax. They, as you mentioned, when it comes to the gambling issues, let's get more vending, some lottery slot machines in what was the bus stops or whatever they were looking for, so that way they can bring in more revenue. We talk about trying to lower the tax rate so that way we can bring in horse racing. No, you can't be doing that. Horse and dog racing, you can't do something like that because that's going to compete against the casinos that are bringing in a lot of state revenue. And I mean, everything that they've done has been for the benefit of the government, not necessarily the people.
Well, wasn't, my memory serves me right, when Governor Brownback first came into office, wasn't one of his boasts was, I'm going to get rid of unnecessary regulations?
Sure. Yeah.
And what happened to that?
Well,
I mean, we're just as regulated as ever.
You're right. He started. I give him credit for starting. He tried, but he didn't have the legislative support in order to make it happen. And what he did do to be able to cut some of the government regulation, they ended up re-implementing and turning back and reversing as soon as he got out of office. And what they've done the last couple of years, he tried to go to the path to zero so we could have a fair tax. Again, we have the 8th highest sales tax in the entire nation, and all 7 above us, by the way, are completely fair tax states where they don't have a state income tax. They only pay sales tax, which would make sense. We're the only state where we have the 8th highest sales tax, and we have a massive income state tax. And by the way, they just increased that retroactively last year because they need more money.
And I'll just leave with one comment on the immigration problem.
Yes.
I'm scratching my head because we've had families come into the United States for a long time. I tend to think that the media or powers that be are hyping this up and taking it out of context. Because wasn't the Democrats the ones that set up the law?
That allowed this? Yes. Bill Clinton did back in, 95 or 96?
Well, that needs to be pointed out and brought up time and time again, rather than making Trump look like he's a big meanie, you know.
Sure. And here's the dirty part about it. They say, when we mention that fact, that Bill Clinton started this process back in 95, 96, when he initiated this, they say, no, that's not true because it doesn't specifically say to tear families apart from their children, which is true. What it did was it created the scenario to say this is the policy that we need to implement in order to stop people crossing the border illegally. It just happened to turn into that type of process It didn't specifically say in the bill to tear the families apart, but it allowed that opportunity to do so, which is why it began to happen. It happened under George W. Bush because they never repealed that law. It happened under Barack Obama because they never repealed that law. And when Donald Trump got into office, he said, we're going to up the ante a little bit because we need to really enforce border security, which is why it happened more frequently under Donald Trump. And that's what they're throwing a fit about. But he never changed the writing of it. He never changed the wording of it, and he never, just as Bill Clinton never had, specifically mentioned anything about we need to separate families from their children and we need to separate them in detention centers. None of those words were mentioned by Bill Clinton nor by Donald Trump, but yet it's been happening for the last 20-plus years.
Well, like the old saying goes, the best way to get rid of a bad law is to enforce it.
Yeah, well, hey, there you go. And now we're starting to see everybody all up in arms again now because Donald Trump's doing it. He's a big meanie head and probably a racist, and that's why they're throwing the fit that they are today. Gary, I appreciate it very much, my friend. We got to take a break here. But you're right. I mean, that's what we need to remember here. And that's the tweakiness. That's the funkiness of what you see by social media memes, by tweets that happen because they get all upset. Look at this. Bill Clinton never said anything like that. No, he didn't. Neither did Donald Trump. He just took what Bill Clinton did and just upped the ante a little bit, which is why we're seeing it more frequently. And now all of a sudden it's a big issue. Now all of a sudden it's a problem. And now all of a sudden it's all about the emotional argument, as you just heard. State Representative Gail Finney spoke there on Friday as well at the rally, making their demands be heard.
I'm so glad to be out here with you all today because I definitely support this movement. Because what is happening there is wrong. It's just absolutely wrong. I have personally tried to contact several different officials here. I've called the 1-800 number. I've contacted different immigration attorneys trying to get contact people. I've gotten different names and different numbers. But when I call those numbers, it just goes blank. I mean, they don't answer the phone. It just keeps ringing, and no one is there. Today, well, a couple of days ago, I went here. The office was closed. But I came back again today, and for any of you that has been inside there today, it's just vacant. There's nobody in there. It seems as though no one wants to listen to what's happening out here, or no one wants to give us a response.
Stop right there. If nobody's there, does that mean that they're detaining people? If the building's vacant and the building's empty, does that mean that they're detaining people there? Continue.
The only thing that we want to know is if this is a detainee center, if there's anybody that they are detaining, we want to make sure that they're taken care of, they're treated humanely, that they have food, that they have clothes, that they have toiletries, and we'd like to know the size of the place. We'd like to know how much food that they're having to provide. We want some answers, and right now we're not getting it. So we're in this together, and I'm here to stand with you, and I love you all.
Yeah, there we go. That was State Representative Gail Finney speaking at the protest on Friday at the rally/demand list press conference that they made on Friday with wanting to inspect this. You are a state legislator. This is a federal building with a federal matter, which is why that you have not been able to gain access on that. That does not mean that they're trying to close you out. That does not mean that they don't care. That just means that you don't have the clearance or the authority to do that. Very simple. We reached out to State Senator Olitha Fauskido. We'll play her clip when we come back as well. Get your thoughts on this. Do you think the demand's going to be made? Yeah, probably not. 21 minutes past the hour. This is the Voice of Reason.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
What if your child, your probably your nephew or niece, you're here in the United States, but your sister tried to come over. She came over because they killed her husband in Nicaragua or Salvador or Honduras. And they are extorting money out of her. They're saying, well, you've got an uncle in the United States, you're going to... So she's running for her life. And at least her child is in custody, maybe here, maybe at one of these other places, okay? Don't you want to know, can you communicate with them? If they won't even answer a representative in the Kansas House or the Senate, they're not going to, sure not going to, give you any break at all by answering you. They're going to say, hang up, like what Gail Finney said they were doing.
I don't even know what that statement even is supposed to mean. Welcome back in 316-721-8255. Let's just create a scenario here where everything's terrible and everything's horrible, and let's just create this worst-case scenario that I'm sure that some people are probably going through, but very small and very limited. What is your kid doing in a detention center here? If she, being the mother, is back in the country, what is your child doing here in a detention center? How does that even make sense? 316-721-8255. This is, they're trying to find any type of emotional argument, just try and get people riled up for the emotional side of this. It has nothing to do with fact, has nothing to do with realism, has nothing to do with the real world. It has everything to do with emotion when it comes to some of these protests. State Senator Olitha Faust-Godot spoke on Friday at the rally as well.
I, too, like Representative Gail Finney, we both represent this area, and we are here today responding to the questions and concerns and questions that we have received from our constituents that we represent. We are here doing our job today.
Yes.
They should be there doing their job. We are here to make sure that transparency is real. We talk about that. Let's put it to action. We are here for humanity, for all people. We want equal rights for all people. On some of the committees that we serve on.
Stop. Hold on right there. Equal rights for all people. First off, we have equal rights for people. It's called human rights that we do abide by. But equal rights as in like American citizens? What are you talking about? If you're an illegal alien, then you do not follow U.S. law. Yes, you have some rights as a human basic right that they have to follow. But other than that, you're not a U.S. citizen. You do not fall under the rules and guidelines and protections as an American U.S. citizen because you're not one, which is the whole argument that we've been having here from the get-go. Again, how does this make any sense?
Serve on the Oversight Committee. We want oversight.
Right.
We want to know that what's going on in there is being done legally, that people are being treated right. I also heard that they are not only addressing the issues on the border, they are arresting people right here in Wichita. Yeah.
That's State Senator Olitha Faust-Godot. Are you seeing the difference in what their argument is? We want to make sure people are being treated properly in the detention center. We don't want to separate families, so you shouldn't be detaining them in the first place. What? If you don't want them detained in the first place, then what do you care about what the quality is in the detention center, if that is what that is, because you don't want them there in the first place? Do you want them there to abide by the rule of law, or do you don't want them there? You got to choose one. You can't have it both ways. Come on.
I may be blind, but I'll find my way.
It's time for your daily dose of reason.
Are you insane?
I don't know. Just ignore him.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM, waking you up the best way we know how to do so, which is the right way. You can interpret that however you'd like to do so. 316-721-8255.
Yes. Doing nothing wrong.
Yes.
And asking them for their papers. They are not just giving them a bail, they are arresting them and putting them in jail. And they are asking for 20,000 bonds to get out. And instead of the usual 1,500, we could probably raise that. They are doing some illegal wrong stuff, and I am asking for my U.S. Congressman right now, my representative, Ron Estes, to give us some answers. Ron, let us know. And then maybe people can go home and sleep peacefully, knowing that what's going on here in Wichita, Kansas, that we're doing the right things. Yeah, he should be here. He should be here, regardless if he supports it or not. His job, he was elected.
Where is he? Where's Ron? Where's Ron? Where is that guy? We don't know where he's at. Why didn't he show up to a progressive rally trying to make demands on a federal building? Where's Congressman Ron Estes? Let me tell you something. The movement we're trying to create right now, he said he'd be in support of it. He'd, if not being there in person, he'd at least have some type of letter of support that we'd be able to have with our movement as well. This is, where is he? I can see the next protest. Hashtag where's Ron? I can see them trying something like this. Why? Well, because he's got nothing better to do. I mean, he needs to be out there demanding entrance into an ICE facility, whether he has the clearance or not, because, well, that's just the way that it rolls, right?
We have been on this barricade for 6 days now, and we want an army of people to come out in November, to come out in these after the primaries. We're going to be from August on up. We got to start fighting. People, our lives depend on it. Our country depends on it. It's not. I don't like politics. No, dude, you can't. That won't fly anymore. That won't fly anymore. I never did like politics. Well, you better start liking it, or you're going to see your kids in there. Maybe use marijuana. Maybe whatever.
Work at the polls. Let our voices work at the polls.
We have to let the blue wave roll.
It's fun, isn't it? It's very entertaining. It is like it's better than watching a daytime drama soap opera, because if you don't go out and vote, you're going to end up in there with Donald Trump, with the Nazis, with the fascists, with the hyperbole that we like to create, with the complete over-dramatization of half of these situations. If you don't show up and vote and the blue wave happens and doesn't happen, and the mass blue wave across, which, by the way, the blue wave's not going to happen. The blue wave is not going to happen, especially here in Kansas. You're not going to win. I'm sorry. There are not enough progressive fringe ideologues to show up and actually make something like that happen. It's not going to happen. But you can try. I'm glad you're trying to rally the people that's on your side. That's what you do. That's how politics is played. I understand that. It's not going to happen. But the over-dramatization, the dramatic emotional pleas that they make, that if you don't have the blue wave to impeach President Trump, to abolish ICE, to stop the separation of families, and if you don't do it, then you will end up there as well. That's exactly what he just said. Did you not hear that? It's exactly what they just said.
Just last Sunday in Mexico, a socialist president the corruption of 80 years of a government that cowed down to American business and did whatever was good for the American side of the border. But now we've got hope. We've got hope on the Mexican side.
Then move down there.
A socialist in Toronto and Canada, a progressive politician up there, one in Mexico. Let's sandwich it.
This is the lunacy that we have to deal with. The socialist just won down in Mexico. That president down there, that socialist guy, that's going to be great. He's going to start cleaning up the corruption. Let me tell you something. If these individuals are coming from Central America and they're doing their nice little caravan through Mexico, if socialism is so great, they're going to clean up the corruption in Mexico, then why in the world would we even need to worry about illegal immigrants coming across the border here in the United States? Why would they? If socialism's so great, then they just have to go to Mexico and they'd be living the dream, right? Move there. Enjoy it. Enjoy your socialist little utopia. Oh, we're going to sandwich the United States with that socialist Trudeau up in Canada and now the new president of Mexico down there, and we're just going to sandwich that. We're going to bring socialism to the United States because it's going to be all around us, and the U.S. just has to accept it, and they're going to start turning into that mindset as well. Are you kidding me? Yeah, it's sandwich it. It's socialism. Move there. See how great it is. See how well it's going to work out for them. And by the way, I don't want to hear a single word about illegal immigration any longer coming into the U.S. because there's no need for them to come here anymore, right? There's no need. They don't have to come here. They're going to have a socialist utopia, wonderful, nice little paradise down in Mexico, right? Socialism's going to make it happen. Now, they're saying that it's their duty to start coming across our borders as a socialist nation, but I don't know why. Capitalism's terrible. Capitalism's horrible. They don't want to live in a capitalist nation where we keep people down. They don't want to live in a nation where it's a bunch of old white men, apparently, that try and control everybody here. They don't want to live in a terrible society like that. Live in the socialist nation of Mexico. Live down there. See how well it works out for you. See how great it is. I got no qualms with you wanting to move down there. Go for it. I don't want to hear about illegal immigration anymore because we're going to have problems, right, with so many people flooding the Mexico border going south that we're not going to have to worry about it, right? We're going to have to build the wall to keep people in afterwards, right? That's what we're going to have to worry about. That's going to be the new concern. because socialism's working so well that they're still going to flood up to the U.S. border. Working so well that we're going to have to worry about tearing apart the families here in the United States, right? So well that socialism is going to work in Mexico that they're still going to have the caravan to travel an entire almost continent to go up Mexico in order for them to come to the U.S. border and say, hey, we're here. Because that's how bad it is, right? That's how good that Mexico is going to be. That's how bad that the United States is. Doesn't make any sense to me. This is lunacy. Absolute lunacy. And again, what are you protesting? Are you protesting the fact that they're there in the first place and that we should abolish it because we shouldn't detain anybody in any way, shape, or form? Or are you making sure that when they are detained that they're being sent down and being treated appropriately? Because those are two different things. You cannot argue both of them at the same time. You just can't do it. It doesn't make any sense. But what does make any sense on the left side of the aisle? 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Get your thoughts and calls on this. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning. This is Deacon.
Deacon, what's happening, sir?
Brother, I am having a fantastic day out here.
I love it. Kicking off a brand new week.
That's right. You know, I got to tell you, that guy sounds like an idiot, but he was right on one thing.
What's that?
If you don't take an interest in politics, you're going to get railroaded.
Sure.
So, you know, there are way too many liberal people out there who are showing up to vote, and the only thing they're doing is they're pulling the lever for someone with a D in front of their name because they hate Republicans.
Sure.
If conservatives don't get out and vote for conservative values in the primaries and then go out for the general, then, you know, we're going to end up losing this country, and it's going to be our own fault because we sat at home and we didn't vote because the guy that was available to vote for, I didn't agree with 100%.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, the Democrats are riled up, and here's the thing. That's why I'm glad he mentioned it in that sense, because, you know, that's what you do on the campaign trail. That's what you do during election season. Get out and vote. Don't, you know, you can't sit aside and just forget about it and ignore it. The thing is that the progressive fringe activists, obviously they're riled up. Obviously, they're the ones that are turning out to actually make a difference and wanting to try and do something. We saw that with James Thompson's race last year against Congressman Ron Estes. You saw that, you're seeing that now with this election, both with James Thompson and with these protesters. They are riled up. The ones that, as you mentioned, we need to actually get out and actually show up to vote would be the Republicans that just go about their business, are too busy to worry about protests or rallies, that are too busy about, you know, trying to put food on the table and trying to make sure that they show up. Because when they show up, we dominate and we completely destroy any Democrat within the area for the South Central Kansas region.
Absolutely. And, you know, I understand people not showing up to rallies because, you know, hey, we got jobs and most of them are during the week.
Right.
But we need to start really making an effort because we got to quit being complacent, quit being comfortable, because this country is slipping away from us because we're just letting these people out there, you know, the empty can's rattling loud right now. You know, they say the empty can rattles the most. There are a whole lot more of us than there are of them, but we're just kicking back thinking they're not making a difference. They are making a difference because they're the ones on the news. They're the ones when people drive by, they see them, and they're going, well, you know, maybe they've got a point.
Sure. Well, you're right. And they're I mean, you know, sitting on the side of the street corner for 6 days as they protested, we can kick back and say, yeah, they didn't do anything. But guess what? How many people did they impact with signs as they were driving by? How many people got riled up enough to want to go out there and try to confront them or try and do something about it? How many times did we hear the news story that, by the way, made somewhat national news on that front with the sit-in that they did and they're threatening to do again? I mean, what kind of impression did they have on certain voters, which is why we need to turn around and we need to do something of our own and make it a positive step as well and make the news ourselves and say, guess what? That's not what Wichita stands for. That's not what Kansas represents. We do support law enforcement. We support security at the border. We do support ICE, and we support being able to welcome individuals into our nation as long as they do it legally.
Absolutely. And, you know, that state representative, I didn't catch her name.
Gail Finney.
There you go. They're showing up. Their representatives are showing up, and they're making the news. They're making the sound bites. You know, we've got to get our people out there. We've got to say, you know, hey, we represent people who respect the rule of law. Mm-hmm. We love this country. This country it's a republic, not a democracy. It's a republic. Republic means we are founded on laws.
Exactly.
So We've got to stand up, brother. You have a great day.
I love it, Deacon. I appreciate it very much, my friend. You're absolutely right, which is exactly what we're going to be doing. More details coming soon. 47 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Market information, Mid-America Ag Network. Well, live cattle futures were weaker into the close Friday, settling steady to 57.5 cents lower. Feeder cattle futures were down 30 to 50 cents after showing more than $1 gains at midday. The CME Feeder Cattle Index was down 58 cents, 144.15 on July 5th. Wholesale boxed beef values were mixed Friday afternoon. The choice boxes were down 40 cents at 208.03. Select boxes were a penny higher at 198.71. USDA estimated federally inspected cattle slaughter through Saturday at 562,000 head. 25,000 head more than the same week last year. Lean hog futures settled the day Friday with losses of 62.5 cents to $1.92.5. CME lean hog index was down 27 cents on July 3rd at 82.24. The USDA pork carcass cutout value was down 77 cents Friday afternoon at 85.52. National base hog carcass price 76.61. That's down a dime from the previous day. Estimated federally inspected hog slaughter was 1.988 million head through Saturday. That's up 111,000 head from the week before. Refocusing now, corn, soybeans, wheat. Corn futures are trading 3 to 4 cents lower this morning after ending Friday with gains of 8 to 9 cents. Soybean futures are 9 to 11 cents lower after posting huge 38 to 39 cent gains on Friday. And wheat futures are mostly 4 to 7 cents lower this morning. So things seem to be in the doldrums as we start our Monday after a shortened holiday week last week. Taking a look at where we are this moment, September corn is down 4 at 356 and a quarter. December is down 4 at 369. September Kansas City wheat is down 6 at 507. December is down 5 at 529 and a quarter. So not much positive there. Soybeans in the same shape. August beans down 9.5 at 868. September down 10, 873 and a quarter. Bean meal and bean oil are also lower. Market update, Mid-America Ag Network.
You've heard the expression, it's like throwing money out the window. That's exactly what you're doing every time your AC or heater comes on if you don't have good windows or siding. So here's a tip from Myers Exterior Products. Since the weather's getting warmer, take a walk around your house and look at your siding and windows. Then call Myers Exterior Products, the outside expert, to come show you how to keep from throwing your hard-earned money out of your old windows and tuck safely in your house protected by your brand new replacement windows. Call today.
Myers Exterior Products. Call 944-1024.
8 minutes to the top of the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting out of here in Wichita, Kansas, getting you started for a whole brand new week. Can you believe it? It's hard to believe after the holiday we had last weekend. Trying to scoot through, doing your thing. We're here to get you pumped up for a Monday. 316-721-8255. This portion of the Voice of Reason, as it always is on a Monday, brought to you by the AARP, the Fraud Watch Network, Retirement Calculator. Getting involved, trying to help out others does not matter. Check them out, aarp.org/KS4, the state of Kansas. Marion Turner back on the lineup with us this morning. Marion, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
We are living the dream, having more fun than what we should be on a post-holiday week Monday, which I know after the holiday it's always a little more tough to get back into the groove of things, but we're trying. We're trying.
Yeah, I think we're all making an effort, but you're right. It's really hard.
It really kind of is. It is. Let's talk about, let's say that you have an individual who may not be able to take care of themselves much anymore, which we talk about, the CARE Act and individuals becoming a caretaker. But let's take it beyond that, and let's say that some individuals just can't manage maybe their finances or their bills anymore. You need some help being able to take care of them. You guys offer services and even a class to help people learn how to properly manage individuals' livelihoods sometimes, don't you?
Absolutely. And we have 2 online classes coming up. The first one is going to be on July 24th. That's a Tuesday from 6 to 6:30 p.m. And we'll be talking about how do you prepare to manage your loved one's health care expenses. This is a free online question and answer webinar. And in that particular class, they'll be talking about how to start the conversation about how to take care of your loved one. What are some of the costs that are associated? Also, there will be a discussion about what does Medicaid cover? What does Medicare cover? Sometimes people go into caregiving and they're not sure about which things are covered under which medical plan. And so it's important to know what those two programs do and don't cover. And then the second part of the Q&A webinar will be on Tuesday, July 31st from 6 to 6:30 p.m. And during that session, we'll be talking about, what are some of the VA benefits? What are the benefits that veterans can get? Also, what's covered under long-term care insurance, and do you need it? And then we'll also be talking about out-of-pocket expenses, because they can be substantial. Caregivers do some of everything for the people that they care about, but it can be financially straining. And so that's why these webinars are so important.
It is really important, and I mean, especially as you mentioned with the Medicare, Medicaid, the difference between the two and what covers and what doesn't cover certain things. It's crazy, but you would think that things would get easier as you go along and get towards that time, but it actually gets more complicated because you have to sign up for this program, that program, make sure you're covered here, make sure you're covered there, and you have a lot of ground to cover. And especially if you're older, if you're maybe disabled to some degree, if you're just tired, I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to worry about. So a little help on that front, or at least a little more understanding of that, is always beneficial.
Well, yes, absolutely. And the other part of it is sometimes you don't have a lot of time to prepare for your caregiving role. And so we are recommending that you don't wait for a crisis. Learn some of these things now so that you can be prepared should your loved one become ill, or should you yourself become ill and need a caregiver.
Sure, absolutely. Very good. That's going to be some great webinars there. Get more information on that one, aarp.org/KS for the state of Kansas on there. Also, though, you guys do love getting involved with the community, and the upcoming ice cream social is around the corner. And I tell you what, with the hot weather that we've had lately, ice cream sounds really delightful.
Well, we hope people will come out to the Grandparents Park. There is going to be a wonderful, fun ice cream social for all members of the family, and that's going to be on the 19th of July from 6:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. And the Grandparents Park is located at the corners of Kellogg and Estelle on the south side. And so, again, we hope people will come out.
I love it. I love it. For more information and other events you guys have going on, again, what website, where can they go? How can they reach out to you guys at the AARP?
Well, to register for the online seminar and to just see a calendar of events, log on to our website at www.aarp.org/KS or call us at 1-866-448-3619. We'd love to talk to you.
Very good. And I'm sure that at the ice cream social, maybe at the Grandparents Park, I'm sure maybe some kids will be playing some Pokemon Go as they had the last time.
Possibly. There's going to be lots of food and music, and so just come on out.
Very good. It's going to be fun. Marion Turner with the AARP. We appreciate it very much. Have a great week. We'll chat with you again next Monday.
Thanks.
Always a pleasure there. Brought to you by the AARP. Check them out, aarp.org/KS for the state of Kansas. Wrapping up hour number 2. It's going to be open lines to you for the next hour. No guest today. You and I chit in the chat. Tomorrow we got a great guest we'll talk about a little bit, but we'll reconvene a little bit on this immigration protest as we are working on our very own rally. We're going to make something happen here to be able to show the positive impact of what's happening and actually have a clear, defined message of who we support and what we support. I know it's a crazy concept to have in today's times, but that's what we're going to do. Also, we'll retouch on the Kansas tax reform and the tax receipts that we've seen the 1 year after the retroactive tax increase. What has it looked like? What have we done? There's also a new debate when it came to the gubernatorial race. Republicans are starting to spar when it comes to how to take care of the government, how to take care of tax rates, and even spending, especially when it comes to education. I made a comment, and it kind of falls in line with some of the other statements being made from some of the other candidates recently when it comes to educational funding in the state. We have to address this now if we're going to see any benefits from this down the road. So we'll talk about all that and more in a Monday morning in the 8 o'clock hour. Your phone calls always welcome as well. As usual, it's not about me, it's about you. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud. Speak the truth and always speak some reason. Hour number 3, The Voice Reason, right around the corner. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
If you're going to run as a Republican, then you need to uphold Republican values. Less government, limited taxes, less regulation, understanding the duties of the government. These are things that are the platform of the Republican Party. They've been the platform of the Republican Party for a really long time, and now Republican legislators need to uphold that, respect it, and fight for it, rather than saying they will when they run for office and then turning around and doing something different.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation. Here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Hey, it's great to have you along today on a brand new week. It is a post-holiday week. Let's start off on Monday. What do you say? Setting the tone for not only for today, but for the entire week, getting you pumped up, getting you excited. I know it's hard after you had kind of a shortened one. Let's have a little fun today. What do you say?
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here.
Oh, yeah, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you are more than welcome to do so. It is open lines to you. No guests, just you and I chitting the chat, advancing conservatism on a daily basis. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well. If you want to check that out, facebook.com/1480KQAM. Like it, share it, leave a comment, call me a jerk. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter to me. One way, shape, or form. You're more than welcome to just get a little active on there. I always like every once in a while when we get some debate going with all the listeners and some dialogue. Let's make that happen today. Facebook.com/1480KQAM. Here is, let me ask you something. If you live outside of your means, you personally, your family, maybe you don't have a family, maybe it's just you as an individual. Maybe you did it without the approval of the family. Let's see how well that works out for you. Let's say that you go out and you're struggling. Maybe you have a lot of mortgage, or maybe you have a really big car debt, maybe you have a lot of student loans, maybe you have a lot of credit cards or medical debt, whatever, and you turn around and you go out and you buy a nice new Mercedes-Benz or something, nice new fancy car, and you get a big debt in there, and you either spend the emergency fund that you had, or you take out a really big loan, and now you can't afford it. And now it's really too expensive. And now you're looking to say, hey, you know what? I've kind of trimmed out my budget the best that I can, so therefore I need to go find more revenue in order to compensate for these bills. So you go to your boss and you say, boss, I need more money. I need a raise. And your boss says, well, why, so-and-so? Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, why do you need more money? Well, I've been working really hard, and I've been doing the best that I can, and I just got a new car, and now the car payments are really too expensive for me. Is that the right justification for your boss to turn around and say, yeah, okay, here's a raise for you? Because you need more money because you spent outside of your means as a personal individual. That's what's happening with our school districts right now. I tell you what, I was driving around the district, driving around the South Central Kansas area, really, the last couple of weeks, just going out on drives, going on, getting out of the house a little bit, just trying to cruise, trying to help out with places and things that I can, just trying to get out a bit. And I've been driving around, and I would drive past these buildings. Massive buildings, huge. It looks like university college grounds, but they're not. They're elementary and they're middle school and they're high school buildings, massive buildings. And I stop and I think, just by looking at these, I stop and I look and I think, we're complaining that we don't have enough money, while I see this football field that looks like Tiger Woods' backyard. We see a baseball field and a softball field. We see maybe a big open field for soccer. We see 3 different playgrounds at the elementary school. We see, it goes on and on and on. I saw a rock climbing wall. Did you realize that one of them has like a zip line and a rock climbing wall? These are what we're dealing with. This is what we have to deal with. while we hear over and over and over that we're running out of money for schools, that we hear over and over and over that the students do not have enough in order to be able to graduate, that the graduation rates are really low, that the test scores are really low, that we're struggling when it comes to more money into the schools, that we need more superintendents, that we need more administrators, that we need X, Y, and Z. We drive by and we see these massive schools, absolutely massive schools. We hear the story about the bistros that are in some of the administration buildings so they can get their nice cup of joe in the morning. Because it's really important, because or else they would have a really tough time being able to educate the students, or at least go into their office and push the papers while the teachers educate their students because they don't have enough money to put dry erase markers into the classroom. This is what we're up against. And as we talked a little bit earlier in the show about the amount of revenue coming into the state, as we talked about earlier about the number of the amount of money, the massive amounts of money that the government gets all goody about. We saw the tax reform 1 year after the retroactive tax increase. The state of Kansas wrapped up the fiscal year by collecting $1.2 billion more in tax revenue than what Governor Brownback had done with his supply side economic theory. Oh, yes. That's what we're up against. That's what we're dealing with. And I don't understand why. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. This is why we have to reform it, why we have to focus on the local school board that we've tried to talk about, why we have to focus on the Supreme Court, which is going to be a very tough task, and why when we get our midterm elections through, whether we're looking at the governor's race, whether we're looking at the state legislative races, we need to get somebody in there that is not going to be afraid to show up and say we're not going to spend massive amounts of money anymore on education. We do not need what we've been hearing kind of on the streets, the Taj Mahal schools. Why do you need that? And if you're talking about athletic fields as well, let me tell you something. The baseball field, I used to play baseball. Yes, I actually played a sport. I played baseball from T-ball all the way up to high school. And I stopped in the middle of high school because I had other priorities that I wanted to do. But the baseball field that we had in Colorado, we called it, it wasn't even the high school ball field. They said they wanted to build a high school ball field, and I think maybe they've done it now, but it took them years and years and years and years and years and years to do it. We used the community baseball field where we had the little league teams play for the high school, and it was in a little community outside of the school. It was called Berland, and we'd always joke about the Berland bounce because there was zero grass in this field. In this baseball field, in the infield, in the outfield, nothing. It was in the mountains. There were rocks everywhere. And we joked about the Berlin bounce because you hit the ball and you get ready to catch a grounder that was coming right at you, and it would hit a rock and it would fly up and knock you in the nose, or it would fly way off to where you'd have to go chase after it because that's the way that field was. Now tell me why we need here all of a sudden we need to spend millions of dollars on a brand new baseball field when we have one just down the street, maybe for the community. When we have one just down the street, maybe at another school. When we have one just down the street that we could utilize. Why do we need a brand new one or two? Why do we need a separate one from a baseball team and a softball team? Guess what? In our field that we had, you had the two different holes that you could slide the different baseball whatever's in. The bases. And one was closer for the softball, one was longer for the baseball. But the bases would move. And that's just what we did. And we would be really, really happy when it would rain because then we could dampen the field a little bit so that way we could actually try and pick out some of the rocks as we would walk onto the field. Tell me why that there, being a brand new baseball field that we would have to have at some of these facilities, would be so important that the students cannot live without them. Why are we spending the money on Olympic-sized swimming pools? Well, we got to have the opportunity for the kids to be able to swim. Okay. Why? Well, I mean, you never know. You could be deterring someone from not making the Olympics one day. And that one student that might be able to make it to the Olympics is more important than the money going to the classroom to be able to get the right books, to get the right number of chairs, to be able to pay the teachers the amount that they need to in order to properly educate so that way they don't have to invest their own money into the classroom. Do you see the cycle we're going on here? And yet then we have the Taj Mahals, the administrative buildings where we're seeing bistros and we're seeing workout rooms and we're seeing lounges for the administrators. because that is more important than the actual classroom. Now, as we see $1.2 billion more in tax revenue, because they're all giddy of the fact that, we raised taxes and all of a sudden we saw tax increases and we saw revenue increases, and oh boy, look at that. That's some hard-breaking news right there. When you raise taxes, then you actually receive more money as a state. It's crazy. And now they say, we've actually done really well being able to get the formula on track now, according to the Supreme Court. But now we need to take it to the next step, and we need to, we need to base it on inflation. We need to increase it based on inflation. So that way, every single year, we can say we need more money because of inflation. At what point do we draw the line and say that when you drive by a certain school district and you see massive schools, massive buildings, with athletic fields all around it that look in pristine condition, at what point do you say, how is that helping the actual education of a child? How is that actually helping make that kid smarter by going into their classroom? How is that helping them in any way, shape, or form? It really makes you think. And whose fault is that? Well, you could look at the local school board. You could look at the Supreme Court. You could look at the weak legislators that have chosen not to address this issue because they've been too scared at abiding by the Kansas Supreme Court. 18 minutes past the hour. It's a very frustrating situation to be in, but this is the motivation that we can use to rise up, to go to the voting booth, and to change that dynamic just a little bit when it comes to the midterm elections in a few months, when it comes to the governor's race, when it comes to the legislative race, when it comes to, not in this cycle, but in a cycle here coming very soon, the Kansas Supreme Court with some new nominees. Do we have a say in that? Not necessarily, unless you actually pass the bar exam and you're part of the bar association. Then you could possibly have a say in that. But the rest of us, well, we just had to fight the way to change that system a little bit. 18 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason on a Monday. Stay right here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Minutes past the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. There is a bit of difference in opinion when it comes to some of the gubernatorial candidates running for the Republican side right now in the primary race, which is good. I love that. I love the fact that we actually have a diverse opinion base within the Republican Party, because you're not seeing that on the Democrat side. It's just not happening. They're trying, but it's just not working. See how divided they are? We at least know how to spar, how to beat each other up, take some shots at each other a little bit, and then walk away happy and friends at the end of the day. That's the way the Republicans work. Democrats haven't quite figured that out, and I find that quite ironic. But, what do you do? But the Republicans now figuring out how to best express their opinions and their frustrations when it comes to educational finance. One of them, Secretary of State Chris Kobach, had mentioned his comment saying that he believes 75% of all public education spending, including local bond projects, should be spent on classroom instruction, and he's promising to support legislation like that to make it a requirement if he becomes the governor of the state of Kansas. Now, we just talked about the big Taj Mahals. The sad part is that once you create this monster, how do you get rid of it? Once you create that monstrosity of a massive building to where it looks like a college dorm room or a college university, and you see, and you just see the massive school. Now, I don't know how big these school districts are that are in the surrounding areas, not just Wichita, but some of the other areas with Goddard or Cheney or Derby or someplace like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many students there are. I do, though, see the size of their buildings. And you would think that this would be a school for thousands of children. Thousands and thousands of them. You'd think that you'd have 5,000 of them within these school districts. You would think. 5, 10, 15, 20,000 students, and you just went in the high school alone with how big these schools are, and you need multiple of them, right? Instead of actually going into the classroom and saying, here's the resources, here's the books, here's the chairs, here's the yada, yada, yada. And, oh, by the way, let's take care of the actual salaries of the teachers who are actually the ones educating them and taking care of the teachers. There's always this mindset that it's either for or against sort of thing. And with the argument in the state of Kansas, it's usually been, well, conservatives and Republicans, they're against teachers, they're against the schools, they're against the children because they don't approve more school funding. When that's not the case, we want the children to succeed very much so. We're actually in more support of that than anybody else. Just like immigration, we're not racist because we want borders to be secured. It's a very different argument. And why would you even think that? Well, you don't like illegal immigrants coming in, so you don't like children. What? Yeah, you don't want them coming over here. No, we want them to just legally. We want to go through the process. How much money does it cost to detain these individuals and process them? How much money does it cost to pay an administrator to sit in the back room or to pay for a brand new school athletic building than it does to pay a teacher to actually take care of the kids in the classroom? If we do it efficiently, then we don't have to worry about these problems. Then we could be spending a heck of a lot less on our education system, and then we could actually have the proper resources, and then we could see the proper graduation rates, and then we could see the proper test scores, and then everything will go up. That's what we have to focus on. Classrooms are where the children learn. That should be where our school funding goes, according to Kobach. Now, some of the critics say that it's misleading campaign rhetoric. Depending on how you look at it, schools already spend more than 75% in the classroom, where if you consider local and federal money, we could find it nearly impossible to meet Kobach's target. Oh, really? It's impossible. Andy, it's impossible to enforce illegal immigration the way that you want to, building a wall, beefing up security. It's impossible to end illegal immigration. Andy, it's impossible to actually spend money in the classroom as opposed to just the administrators. It's impossible to repeal the Environmental Protection Agency and to repeal a lot of the bureaucratic agents. It's impossible. It's impossible for Donald Trump to get elected to the presidency of the United States. It's not going to happen. It's impossible. It will never happen. Did you ever hear that one before? Why have we put limitations on ourselves to where we see a goal and then people say that we can't meet them? We have an idea of what we want to fight for. Positive, real change. Taking care of the children, taking care of the teachers, taking care of real immigrants coming in, making sure that they're taken care of, making sure that they're successful, making sure they have the opportunities everybody needs. Why do we say that that's impossible and that we shouldn't even try and meet those types of requirements? Why should we try and say that those types of standards are impossible to meet? I think it's time we start reevaluating ourselves. What do you think? I think it's about time that we stop hearing the negative for what everybody wants to talk about. We start talking about the positive. I think it's time that we start hearing from the state legislators who are trying to tell us this drivel and say that we need more money and bow down to the Kansas Supreme Court and bow down to all the authoritarian bureaucrats and start thinking for ourselves. Being the wicked, wild, free thinkers of what we were back in 1776. Maybe then we can actually get some things done productively. Bottom of the hour news coming up. We'll shift gears a little bit because, well, we'll look at some of the records of some individuals and see how we do change that mentality. We'll talk about that and more. Your phone calls as well. It's open line to you for the last little bit of the show. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Hoosier-holic?
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Call in now at 721-8255. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, yeah, that's what we're talking about, my friends. Welcome back in, wrapping up the program today, 35 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, it is open lines to you for the last half hour of the show. How do we fix all these shenanigans? I don't mean to get you all riled up and angry at the first thing in the morning. I address the issues that are happening, and then we figure out how to address them because we try to be the optimistic ones, right? I mean, we are the optimistic side of the aisle.
Andy's optimism of the day.
All right, I'm ready.
That's really how we work, right? I mean, we see an issue, and instead of just complaining about it and whining about it, as many on the progressive side of the aisle do, we actually try and come up with solutions in order to fix them. That's what we try and do. So how do we fix the fact that we have massive schools that look very pretty, yes, and it's enticing, but yet that doesn't help anything for what actually goes on in the classroom. How do you fix something like that? Not quite sure. How do you fix the fact that we have legislators that do not actually build their wall up, build the wall? Maybe that's what we need to have, a slogan to our legislators to build the wall against the Kansas Supreme Court. Build that wall. Build that wall. Maybe we need to do that. What do you think? What do you mean build the wall? Build your wall against the Kansas Supreme Court to where they don't bully you and tell you actually how to dictate financial issues in the state. Maybe that's what you need to address. Maybe that's what you have to worry about. Let's get some individuals in that actually want to do something good, something positive, and actually say, thank you, Supreme Court. Thank you for your opinion. Now we're going to go do our own thing. And it's going to be very difficult. There's something called the Freedom Index Score that the Kansas Policy Institute comes out with every single year. They based on voting records of individuals in our elected offices, and based on, do you vote for free market capitalist ideals? Do you vote for limited government? Do you vote for lower taxes? Do you vote for smaller government? And based on these, your freedom, the less government that there is, the more freedom that you're actually going to have. That Freedom Index Score, how do you rank on there? And you would think, with the party lines that we have, Republican, Democrat, Republican usually consists of conservatives, Democrats predominantly consist of progressives. Now, I am generalizing in that phrase, very much so, obviously. But that's the general assumption that somebody would have. Are you Republican? Are you Democrat? Do you believe in Donald Trump? Do you believe in Barack Obama? Do you believe in socialized universal health care? Do you believe in limited taxes? What do you believe in? And that Freedom Index Score, predominantly, you would guess or assume that based on that assumption that you would have predominantly conservative Republicans higher on the Freedom Index Score that believe in and value more freedom, while you have Democrats that predominantly vote for less freedom because they want freedom for the government, not for the people, while we believe in freedom from the government, which creates freedom for the people. So there's a big difference there. However, if it wasn't for one Democrat, which would be Debbie Steer, Democratic State Representative from Lansing, if it wasn't for one Democrat at the bottom of that list who's voted very consistently against freedom under the Freedom Index Score, according to the Kansas Policy Institute, I got to put that in there because it's not just a generalization. Some people would truly say that they feel like a progressive voting for larger government means more freedom. That doesn't make any sense, but they could make that argument if they wanted to. They're entitled to that right to say that. I don't understand it. I don't get it, but they have the right to say that. But according to the Kansas Policy Institute that looks at the freedom that you have compared to the way you vote on governmental issues, one Democrat, Debbie Deere, Democratic State Representative from Lansing, would be at the bottom of the list. After that, the next sixth at the bottom of the list are Republicans. Republicans, Mary Martha Good, one of them, state representative least committed to freedom, according to the Sentinel with this story, with 6 rhinos, Republican in name only. Mary Good, a kindergarten teacher. Now try and find a trend here as well. Former kindergarten teacher from El Dorado on that one. The next one, Susie Swanson of Clay Center, first elected in 2014, representative. Like Representative Good, Swanson's Facebook page reveals that may have some type of influence as a school social worker as a background before getting elected as a representative. As a school social worker. Okay. The next one, Dave Baker, the only male of the 6, product of the 2016 moderate revolution, the run-up to the 2016 primary. Booth said Dave understands the need for quality public education and will fight hard for our local schools as a businessman from Council Grove, and mentioned that would fight for more education and educational funding. Patty Markley over Overland Park during the 2016 shift. Active Christian, longtime Republican, also is a individual who focused very much so on educational funding. Sheely Brim, and we've had Sheely on the show, a very nice individual, yet 32 years of teaching in public schools, and before filing for state representative to run as an elected official in the state of Kansas, and focuses on educational funding. Linda Gallagher, class of 2016 when she got into office, as a social justice warrior, a strong Trump critic, and someone who wants to focus on educational funding. Are you seeing a trend with all of these? Now, again, all of these are Republicans. They're not Democrats. They're Republicans, which if that's their prerogative, then that's their prerogative, and that's what they chose to do. And whether they stay in office or not, that's going to be up to the voters. I'm not judging in any way, shape, or form on that sense. The point is that while we talk about a freedom index score, while we talk about a unified party or a unified movement to try and fight these ridiculous issues when it comes to the size of government, when it comes to the freedom of you and I, that we're not all on the same page and that many Republicans are the ones fighting for this issue. And that is kind of a concerning, scary thing. Now, we mentioned this last week, and I feel very proud about this, or a couple of weeks ago at least, but we're trying to implement some type of Republican platform that's going to be a little more stringent on what you believe and taking a litmus test on what you believe as a member of the Republican Party. And then it's up to you and I as the voters and constituents to decide on whether that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. If someone comes out and says, yeah, I'm a former teacher, I'm a former social justice warrior fighter for the children, and I'm going to fight for educational funding and more school funding and just keep dumping money into it, then you as the voter should know that. And then you should know the actual details of the actual issue on how much money is going in, where the money is going, how much involvement the state legislatures have versus the Supreme Court versus the local city, the school board at the local level, and where it all breaks down. And when you drive by the school and you see the Taj Mahal with plenty of fancy buildings and building after building after building and baseball field and football field and softball field and soccer field and swimming pool and everything of the sort, and then you say, wait a second, they got lots of money. It looks really nice. Why can't we graduate our kids there? Then maybe the light will come on. Ding. And you understand, wait a second, maybe just dumping more money into it's not the best idea, because that's what the media tells you. That's what the mainstream media tells you in the state. That's what the majority of the legislators tell you. That's what the Kansas Supreme Court tells you, is that it's not enough money. If you just had more money, then it would fix the issue. That's all you need is just more money, and then everything will be hunky-dory. But obviously we know the opposite. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones, get your thoughts and calls on this. The Republican platform, is it becoming a little bit better? Are we getting a little more stringent on there? Or is this going to do any good? And the fact that many on the bottom of the list of the Freedom Index score, now again, you can take or leave it with what you want with the Freedom Index score. You can question how they actually come up to the conclusion. You can question how they actually run their algorithm. You can question the voting records. You can question whatever. But, the fact of the matter is that's what they came out with. And out of the bottom 7, 6 of them are Republicans that support larger government. Is that a concern to you as a voter in the state of Kansas? Or do you like that? Your thoughts, 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phone line at number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Good morning, Jim. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm just absolutely thrilled to death with the world. I'm just thinking that in a few
It's a good day for America.
It's like somebody asked the question the other day about, are you proud to be an American? And I'm proud, but I'm much more grateful.
Sure. Well, that's true. I mean, be grateful of the fact that you don't have to go through the processes, ways many. Look, I mean, is the world unfair? Yeah, guess what? The world's unfair. We don't have open borders because we need to take care of our own and try to allow people to come into the country. And you're right. The fact that we were born as an American is something that everybody should be grateful and ecstatic about and be able to enjoy and appreciate every single day.
Yeah. And as you were saying a minute ago, and you're a little bit being facetious about talking about, build the wall between the legislature and the schools.
Between the legislatures and the Supreme Court.
Yeah, maybe the build the wall is actually a correct statement. How many of the schools that they've had to build in the state of Kansas are built to accommodate the population of illegal aliens?
Sure.
We don't realize how much of a problem we have. It's obvious if you have a school with 15 different languages being spoken, you need 15 different teachers because you've got to, accommodate things. And then, of course, you need more teachers to teach the language which you think is primary.
Either that, or you have 1 or 2 teachers teaching in multiple different languages, and you learn half the material in twice the amount of time. And let's see how efficient that actually is.
I remember, I'm an old man, and our population was lower years and years ago. But we went to school, and we had a day when you had music teachers there, because the music teacher and the gym teachers and stuff traveled around town and might be at 3 or 4 different schools every week. instead of being there all day long teaching people to hum or whatever. The schools have become cash cows for the bureaucrats. The teaching the students is secondary to the purpose of the school, which is to keep the people off the streets, to do different things. It's hard to say what they do. They sell books. Now, does a school need new textbooks every year because the history has changed that much, or do we need new history textbooks every year because they've changed what they want us to learn so that they can move us towards socialism? These are the questions which comes to my mind.
Let me ask you something. When you were in school and you were reading in your books, whether it was a math book, an English book, a history book, whatever it was, how old was that book? How many people did you see when you signed into it at the beginning of the year and signed out? How many signatures were on there before you actually had it for that year?
Well, it's hard to tell because oftentimes there was a multiple layer of stuck on new lists. But some of the textbooks have been used by 30 or 40 times, going back to before World War II. I was in school in the 1950s, but there were textbooks that had publication dates back in the 1930s, and the books were used until they were worn out.
Sure. You just couldn't use that anymore. I mean, I remember in my classes, especially in elementary, middle school, early high school, that you would, at the first day of every year, you would go in and you would be assigned your book with the book number, so that way you could track it and the quality of it, make sure it's in good condition, and so on and so forth. And you'd look on the front cover with how many students had it before, and you'd see, like you mentioned, you'd see a list of 15, 20 students' names beforehand, knowing that it had been there for a long time because it had been there for at least a good few years, where many students had used it. Now, why do we need a different book every single year, like you see now in college, which that's a whole nother discussion about universities where you need a new version of it every single year?
That's because in colleges, the college has a publication office, and the teachers write their own textbooks.
Well, exactly.
And they require you to buy their book for $100 to go to their class.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a little absurd there. Jim, I got to take a break here. I hate to cut you off, but you're absolutely right. I mean, we have ways that we could make this a little more efficient. We have ways that we can find, and I'm not saying that we're getting new school books every single year. I don't want everybody to go into that false accusation, because if we did, then, that'd be a whole nother price tag onto education. We're not doing that, but at the same time, I like our phrase. Let's start the new phrase, #build the wall. Not for the wall on the border, although we need to do that too, but build the wall between the Kansas legislators and the Kansas Supreme Court. Too long have they been invading and crossing that line that they're not supposed to be crossing with their abuse of power. It's time for our state legislators to build the wall to separate them and their authority from what the Kansas Supreme Court is actually allowed to do. 316-721-8255. Got some more calls on the line. Don't go anywhere. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. We got time to squeeze in a few when we get back here. Wrapping up the show today on a Monday.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
5 minutes to the top of the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up the program today. What do you think? What do you think? Maybe our legislators could use that on the campaign trail. #build the wall between myself and the Kansas Supreme Court. Kansas Supreme Court no longer going to tell us what to do with our funds in the state of Kansas. No longer are they going to dictate finance from the courts. No longer are they going to hold the power of the purse over us when it comes to educational finance. No longer are they going to do that. They can give their opinion, and then that's about it, and that's about as far as it's going to go. No longer are you going to control us in that way, shape, or form. Our legislators, I think, they need to have the slogan, #build the wall between me and my Supreme Court justices. 316-721-8255. Let's get your thoughts and calls. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Good morning, Helen. How are you?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
And by the grace of God, of course.
There
always.
you go. Absolutely.
And hopefully you are too.
Living the dream.
All right. That's wonderful. Well, I know this might be a little bit off topic, But I agree with you. Let's build a wall between the Supreme Court or the state Supreme Court in both.
Well, you know what? I think that's what we need. We need to, if they're going to continue this and say, well, they had the power, what power does the legislature have? If this is the way they want to operate, then what's the point of even having a legislature if they say, you guys aren't doing your job, you need to do it right, and you need to spend more money. Well, how much money? I don't know. Try again and we'll tell you. Oh, okay, it's like the parent trying to adult the child when you don't necessarily need to. It's like the 50-year-old trying to tell their 30-year-old kid how to put their clothes on during the day. And unless you're a millennial living in your basement, you don't necessarily need that type of guidance any longer, because you got this and you have your own authority to make that decision on what you do. The Kansas Supreme Court should not have a say in how much money goes into education at all, period.
No, I constitutionally, the way I understand it, which is, the Constitution is basically written in the simplicity in which Christ taught, that even a child can understand if they truly study the Holy Bible. It's written in the simplicity in which a child can understand, and so is the Constitution. It's not. You don't have to be a rocket scientist.
It's not that difficult. Sure, to understand the basics of what we're up against here. So, I hope to see, maybe we can see some legislators come out and say, you know what? Especially going into a midterm election, they come out and they say, #build the wall. Oh, build the wall, not the southern border wall, which we need to do that as well, but let's build the wall between the legislature and the Supreme Court, because no longer are they going to dictate to us. What do you think?
Absolutely. We need to, okay, the Constitution limits the power of the judicial system. The legislative offices, which is the Congress, has the power over, they even have power over the president and the vice president and all inferior offices, which is the judicial system, or anybody else.
Well, there's supposed to be some happy checks and balances in there. Helen, I appreciate it. We're out of time here, but you're right. We need to figure out the duties again of what each branch of government is supposed to be doing. Everybody have a great Monday. We'll be back tomorrow morning here on The Voice of Reason.